Welcome to the video. This is going to be a little bit different than my usual videos are. We're going to be talking about the church service that I had this morning. And there's a few lessons that I've actually learned from this church service. And it's particularly about the homily. Okay? I just want to give my opinion on it because I thought it was interesting, and I also think that there's like a lesson here for all of us to learn. And that's why I wanted to make it into a video. So, we had a little bit of a different homily this Sunday. It was very interesting. I wanted to give my opinion on it. And the reason why it was different because it wasn't the main priest, it wasn't the deacon who was giving the homily. It was a completely different priest from what I believe was a completely different parish he came from. Anyways, the guy is Indian, and I believe he even said he is like coming from India. But this is the whole point, guys. I cannot understand not one full sentence from this guy. I caught a few words, but I could not understand one full sentence from this guy because of how strong his accent was. He had a very, very strong Indian accent. And I was really trying to focus in some periods of the homily to understand what he was trying to say. And I caught a few words, like I said, here and there, but I really couldn't work out and comprehend a single full sentence from this guy. And it had me wondering, does this guy really think that, and maybe others can understand, but does this guy really think that the audience can very, comprehend what he's saying very easily? Does he actually think that? And I don't know if he does, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to assume that he genuinely thinks, just from the way he was speaking and how confident he was speaking and how fast he was speaking, I genuinely believe that he thought that we could understand what he was saying. And again, maybe some people did understand. Maybe I'm the only one who couldn't comprehend the sentences coming from his mouth. However, I'm going to make the assumption that it wasn't only me. And the lesson from this video, and then I want to get into his ending of his homily, because that's like super interesting, and I completely disagree with the ending of his homily, which I will get into shortly. However, I want to go over the lesson from this whole understanding part of his homily and not being able to understand his accent. It had me thinking, right? It had me thinking, what do I do that is completely flawed that I think people understand, or that I think people agree with, or that I think people don't have a single problem with? What do I do that is completely flawed that I think is perfectly fine, that I think there's absolutely zero issues with? And it really had me analyzing myself. And now moving forward, after that homily and after this morning and after the church service this morning, moving forward, I will keep in the back of my head, I may think that people perfectly understand me, everything about me is perfectly fine, but I will be considering the areas in my life and the behaviors I have and the attributes that I have that may be completely flawed, but I may think it's perfectly fine, right? That's the worst thing that can happen to you, is that you think that what you do is perfectly fine. Maybe it's how you speak is perfectly fine. You cannot make any improvements on how you speak. You cannot make any improvements on what you do. You cannot make any improvements on how you communicate with others. You cannot make any improvements on how you sell couches. The worst thing you can do is think everything's perfect. And I don't believe that we all think, I don't believe there's not one of us that think everything's perfect about my life. I do everything perfectly. But that's not even the point. Like, of course, you don't think everything's perfect, but you may think 80% of the things you do are perfect when it's really 40% of the things you do are decent. Like, people overestimate, including myself, their capabilities as a man. You need to sit back and analyze yourself and analyze where you are flawed, because there are multiple areas on where all of us are flawed. And it's our duty to analyze those areas and fix them as quickly as possible and make them much, much better. Maybe they won't be perfect, but improve them much, much more. The other thing I wanted to discuss is the ending of his homily, which I completely disagree with. And the reason I completely disagree with, because it turns out that this whole homily and this whole thing turned out to be a promotion for some sort of donation to some sort of hospital. And the reason why I disagree with this so strongly is because I believe, as a young Christian, I don't know everything about Christianity, the Bible, or church services. And I'm a Catholic, by the way, if that gives you any context on this video and this church service. My engine smells weird. I'm a little bit worried, guys. Something is smelling weird, and I don't know if it's my truck or a different truck on the highway. Anyways, the reason why I strongly disagree with this promotion of some sort of donation to a hospital is the following. Because I believe that the homily should be solely devoted to analyzing the gospel and more deeply understanding what the gospel was about. It shouldn't lead to some sort of promotion to donate to some charity. I don't care how good the charity is. I don't care how productive our donations would be to this charity. There's a time and a place for that. And the homily is not the time and the place for promoting a donation to some sort of charity or some sort of organization. And I don't care, again, how productive that organization is. I don't care how many people it will help, genuinely. Like, I don't think that's the right time to be promoting that. You can promote it at the end of the church service. You can promote it in the lobby of the church. You can promote it on the bulletin board. You can promote it in a bunch of different areas, and I think that's great if the charity is genuinely helping people out. But to promote it during the homily, it just took away the whole point of me spending my time going to the church service. I'm trying to deepen my connection with God and understand the gospel more, understand the Bible more, and learn from the priest's perception on how he views the Bible, and understand his opinions about the Bible, and understand his 2 cents about the Bible. That's why I'm at the church service, and really to deepen my connection with God, of course, and pray. And I just don't think that in the middle of the church service we should be promoting a donation. That is such a wrong time to be doing that. But anyways, it is June 28th, I believe. We're ending off the month here. We're wrapping it up. I hope you guys had a lovely church service, whatever week you are watching this, because I know I schedule these videos pretty far in advance. I hope your next upcoming church service is absolutely phenomenal and you get closer to God and Jesus. But I just thought I'd share my opinion about this because it was something that was on my mind this morning, and I wanted to express my point of view about it.